You are Locked On Hawks Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Locked On Hawks Postcast, your home for the best Atlanta Hawks talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me is DeShaun, Tate. And today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. The Locked On Hawks Postcast is also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we'll talk about someone who was as big of a giant off the court as he was on the court. And we'll talk about if 11 is starting to look like 11 again, or what's going on with 11. But first, let's talk takes on the 129-119 loss to the Dallas Mavericks tonight. So DeShaun, you said your take was, felt like the Hawks got beaten by one guy.
Yeah, it did. And treated the Hawks like he was their dad. To be honest with you. And I know that Kyrie Irving, came into this game on tonight, particularly in the 33 games that he has played in his career against the Hawks, averaging 26 a game, 51% from the field, 43% from three. And it looked like he wasn't about to stop anytime soon. And to be honest with you, I thought they did a pretty good job on him. Either defensively, they did a good job on him, like in the first quarter, and parts of the first half.
Yeah.
Or he was just toying with them, or just shots that he typically hit just wasn't seeming to be falling. And I'll be honest with you, this game really felt like it was a little bit more embarrassing, to be honest with you, than it may have looked to some, because not only is the reigning runner-ups for the NBA Finals in the Dallas Mavericks missing just shy of 50 points per game between Luka, Doncic, Klay, Thompson, and Quentin Grimes, but also a guy who I think gives a lot of teams problems, particularly in areas where I thought the Hawks needed to be careful tonight, which was rebounding, cleaning that glass, and rim protection, and having the knack and the nose for the ball and activity around the rim. That was Derek Lively. And with him only playing 11 minutes on tonight, that was just one of them that I just really thought, okay, well, this has to be a Hawks win then, right? And because it wasn't, Uncle Drew was Uncle Drewing. And I know that there were some other pieces out there that me and you are going to talk about, the AARP players and things like that. But yeah, it just looked like they got toyed with by one guy tonight. And I think his number is 11.
Yeah, it is. So with Kyrie Irving, I think that for the first half, they kind of contained him, right? He just did 10 points in the first half, and he was 3 of 13, but it's Kyrie Irving. So you had to know at some point, especially like you said, with them missing two of their scorers and really their primary scorer, he knew he was going to have to get after it. And he did, because then I look at the final score. And actually, let me go to the third quarter, because we're going to talk about the third quarter as a whole a little bit later. But that's when you started to see him kind of get going, because he got 6 points in that third quarter. So, 7 points, I think, in the fourth quarter. But I think the most important thing is he just kept adding on. He just kept being Kyrie Irving, kind of scrambling things for the Hawks. And I think that was a challenge. And like you said, again, kind of looking at where things were when it was good, meaning when the Hawks had a lead, and where this thing kind of turned around. And in the first half, they were pretty much identical when it came to rebounds, right? 24 for the Mavs, 23 for the Hawks. However, when I go back and I look at the final box score, it's 41-32. Yeah. And that could be a big reason why we are having a conversation about the Hawks' third loss in a row. And I think, too, when you dig into those numbers, you kind of see where Dallas had more defensive rebounds, if you will. So in my opinion, hey, you get one shot, and then Dallas is making sure you don't get any others. So I think those were some of the issues that we saw kind of rear their ugly heads yet again. And for me, it was kind of a good bad. So my take was that the Hawks still have a problem on the perimeter. And do they have a problem with free throws? Well, it's a no and a yes. So I think from the perimeter, I'm going to go with respectable. Because I think from the perimeter, when you end the game at, okay, maybe not respectable, because they were at one point, they were at 35%, and that was respectable. They ended the game hitting 25% of their threes. That can't happen. That cannot happen when the other team is shooting nearly 38%, which is not great, but it's great when you're shooting 25%. And I did like one thing that got better, and that's the pesky free throws. They were sometimes in the 60% range, and it's like, that's free money. You got to hit those. So almost getting to 86% is much more like this team to at least be disciplined in that department.
Well, you hit the nail on the head on a couple of different things. You talk about the free throws. I always call that the free space on the bingo card. There's nobody running out there at you. There's nobody, out there defending you or got a hand in your face when you're trying to shoot the shot. And I know that from the lazy boy, a lot of that sounds much easier said than done, because there is thousands and thousands of people in the crowd yelling at you or what have you. And then, sometimes when you're running up and down that court, just that huffing and puffing and sucking wind is a whole lot different being on the line shooting those free throws than it is when you're just in the gym by yourself and you haven't done no running around.
But even and by this time that shouldn't be bothering you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're a professional basketball player, and that's what you get paid to do, is to at least hit the free ones, right?
Yes.
But even when you start talking about the perimeter, that is a bigger problem than not, because not only are they having issues with defending the three, clearly when you got Kyrie Irving and then Spencer Dinwiddie combining for 10 threes, but then you also have to factor in that they're not able to shoot very well from three themselves. So you have perimeter issues all across the board. Like I mean, I get it. It's fancy, the 76 points that they scored in the paint and whatever else, what have you. But you're forever playing catch-up, trading threes for twos. And I think you mentioned this a couple nights ago when you mentioned that you're never going to be able to catch up trading threes for twos for threes. But even
when you get it the old-fashioned way with the 10 and 1.
No, seriously. And I think even sometimes a little bit the more embarrassing part on tonight is that while we were thinking about players like Daniel Gafford, who's, a great rebounder, PJ Washington, a great rebounder. In theory, Derek Lively, who would be playing more than 11 minutes per game, being a great rebounder. How about Kyrie Irving had not only the same amount of rebounds that Onyeka Okongwu had, but also out-rebounded Clint Capella. That's enough within Kyrie Irving, the point guard, who's every bit of a foot and a half shorter than probably both of those guys, facetiously or not. So just kind of wanted to add a little bit of context to that, to what makes it feel that this loss is a little bit more embarrassing, especially considering, again, remind you, you don't have Kyrie and you don't have Klay.
Right. And you do, Hawks, have all of your starters. And
that is
still
correct.
Didn't get it done. This was one of the few games this season that's had a clean sheet going in, clean injury report. So really no excuses, But I feel like this is something to where Quinn Snyder has to say to himself and to his players, and which he did say that a little bit in pregame, some of the effort that Trey is playing through, he needs to see that more consistently. We'll talk about that. But when that glaring box score, when you break down that 41 to 25 and your backcourt is beating our bigs, therein lies a problem.
Yeah, it does.
Therein lies a problem. But we talked about this on our last show, kind of wondering what's going on with 11. And I told DeShaun what might be going on. He's not buying it. So we'll talk about that in the end one. This episode of our Locked On Postcast is brought to you by Skims. So what are your usual complaints about underwear? Comfort, fit, design? How does your Skims underwear make you feel? Probably confident and comfortable. And when you look at the Skims, and I have bought them, by the way, when you look at them, you think to yourself, I bought them as a gift for someone. So he really enjoyed it because of the fit. He enjoyed it because they're reliable. So this is not just your average, I'm going to the store, I'm going to pick up boxer briefs and they're going to last forever. Well, no, these actually will, because they have multiple boxer briefs, right? They've got one where they've got the cotton 5th, they've got the stretch 5, the 3, the cotton 3, the stretch 3, Skims cotton brief, and the Skims stretch brief. So you got a lot to choose from with Skims. So shop Skims, men, at skims.com/lockedonnba. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you're looking for the perfect gift, like I said, it was a great gift. Looking for the perfect gift for the family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever, also available at skims.com/lockedonnba. So, DeShaun, when we've been trying to figure out why that Trey we saw at the beginning of the season, who was coming in hot, he's still not there. But Quinn Snyder talked about it pregame and said, hey, Trey is playing through Achilles stiffness, and basically he's just trying to tough it out. And that is what you're supposed to do. That's what all players are supposed to do if they can go. But on the same token, you're looking and you're saying to yourself, okay, the numbers got better, so to speak, but still not Trey-like numbers. So yes, I do feel like it's the Achilles, but I also wonder to myself, because he's not getting production from places where he should get production, if maybe he's trying to overdo it. And I still feel like the passing lanes for Trey are there, but the player on the receiving end doesn't seem to be prepared for it or ready for it, or it takes him so long to reset and regroup. Now the opponent has had the opportunity or the time to get back on defense and essentially contest the shot.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Tenitra. Like, first of all, let me be the first one to raise my hand, of course, because I'll always and forever be this person and say I know that it's, seems easier said than done, especially from the lazy boy where we watch the games at. I don't know. It feels cop out-ish. And I do think that Trey a lot of times gets automatic unfair treatment because we expect him to do so much all the time. And a guy of a small body stature and size, especially when we're talking about a professional sport such as this one, when he's already not the most athletically gifted, he's already not the fastest guy, he's already not the highest jumper and all these other things. That it's already tough enough as it is. So I definitely want to give him credit because I think he gets unfair due in regards to that. I just don't know if this is just one of those things where coach probably just shouldn't mention it. I know that that's probably a really tough ask, especially when reporters and so forth have questions and really want to know the real, they want to know the truth. I just think that this is one of those things where no matter what the answer is, it's almost going to come off like I really don't want to hear it kind of thing because of our expectations of Trey, unfairly even in a lot of cases. But I've never really, I've been watching this kid since he was 16 years old, and there ain't very many instances where I can say that I don't see him give it his all. But I will tell you that there are times when where I feel like the body language is just not what it always seems to be at other times. And I feel like it's noticeable. That is probably the most that I can say without actually being able to go in depth in terms of being able to find verbiage to explain what I'm really thinking or what I really want to say. But it just seems like sometimes when the body language doesn't necessarily match,
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that he doesn't grimace in pain from time to time, and that's why
Yeah.
we see some of the body language the way that it is. But sometimes it just honestly it just feels different. And let me just say this last part. I'm sorry for hogging the mic, but I don't think it helps. And I'm not saying there's not something there right now more than what's actually going on with him. But I don't think it helps that when there was instances where there was these film session issues with him and John Collins, right, reported that after that for a few games, his body language looked different. It was almost like, here, take the ball. Y'all go ahead. And then it comes back to him and he's like, no, don't worry about it. You got it. Here, take the ball. Show me something. You do something with it. Clearly what I'm doing ain't good enough. And then I think we saw a little bit of that when DeJounte had came up. So again, I'm not saying that's the case with this particular roster, but it kind of gives those vibes of me remembering those moments, if any of that made any kind of sense.
It did. It really did, because it is not always about an injury. It is not always about a bad matchup. Sometimes it really is about some internal things that are going on. And for me, Trey, shoot the ball. Like, if you can shoot the ball, shoot the ball. 16 assists, I don't think I want to see that. I think I want you to hover around. I don't mind if you have a double-double, but I think I want you hovering around like 10.
Tenitra, has there ever been a time where we thought we would have to beg Trey to shoot the ball?
Right. Exactly. Because when I looked at the box score, I literally looked at the one that the Hawks sent me, and I went back and looked at the one that's on various websites. And I was like, does that say 5 of 12, as in he only took 12 shots? Now, granted, he got to the free throw line a couple times, but again, 12 shots.
Yeah,
that's just tough. That for me is kind of difficult, but he may be, again, and I'm just going to go in that other direction and say maybe he is legitimately trying to get Zachary Risachet, Dyson Daniels, trying to figure out where, like, how they fit, because again, this is Dyson Daniels coming in and he's not DeJounte Murray. So you got to figure that thing out. And then you're looking at Zachary Risachet. He's just trying to find his way completely. So maybe it's just a situation where you got those two challenges. I think he's fine when it comes to the Jalen Johnson piece. And I still think Clint Capella's a step slower. So if you put all those things in the mix, maybe that kind of accounts for what we've been seeing from Trey. But Quinn also talks about pace and space. And that's another thing. I feel like every time I watch the Hawks of recent, they're not spacing. And so that makes it real easy for the defense, but it makes it kind of difficult to run the kind of offense that Quinn Snyder wants to run. And with that, I don't see the pace that he's trying to set. And I think we saw that even Friday night in that Chicago Bulls game, because they ran a bit, but they were running with the team. I mean, they're 1-2 with that, but they were running with the team that's number one. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think that's still an issue with them as well.
Yeah, it's tough to get a hold on exactly what it is because, and I'll be honest with you, like sometimes it's hard for me to look at this thing and I'm just being really transparent. Like I'm not trying to, let's just kill Trey about every little last thing. But like sometimes it is hard for me to kind of, look past or brush a sweep under the rug. Again, so a lot of stuff is just reports. This is the stuff I've heard Trey say, but just like about the whole, like not really impressed with some of the moves that are being made and just the help that he's getting and surrounding him with this player and that player. And can we realistically expect for him to stick around to wait on guys like Zachary Risachet to grow up and, whatever, and develop into that kind of player? Will he be around that long? And then the Dyson Daniels thing, like, yeah, that's cool. But these aren't, the guys that they're putting around him aren't necessarily names that he feels like he's going to be able to win. Again, sometimes the body language feels like it's giving some of those rumors or giving some of those, allegation or whatever energy, or as if it's giving it, some gasoline to a degree. So I don't know. Again, not trying to place those things on him. I don't think he helps himself sometimes with some of those things. And to be honest, again, I always say this. unfairly. Some of that I just don't think that he can help because of the narrative that has just been built around being what Trae Young's what his approach appears to be. Optically, he just appears to just be that kind of guy, right, wrong, or indifferent. And some of that he's created for himself, and some of that he has not.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about a guy who, when you think about the narrative for him on and off the court, he's one of the greats. So we'll talk about it in Who Got Next. This episode of our Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So there's an intriguing game going on, of course, with the Harbaugh brothers. It's Harbaugh Bowl #3. You try to say that 3 times in a row. So, hey, that game is going back and forth. You might want to check it out. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. This episode of our Locked On Hawks postcast is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks also filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And there's all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? It's game time. So we got the news a couple of weeks ago that one of the all-time greats, one of the most beloved Hawks, passed away. Dikembe Mutombo, of course, left us too soon, passing away at the age of 55. And tonight, the Hawks did a really nice tribute to Deke at halftime. And I know he played with several teams, but I think most people really do identify him as an Atlanta Hawk. So I wanted to know from your perspective, what was something that you saw in him, you saw him do that really was like, oh, wow, that's a moment?
I think that, first and foremost, let me say this part. And I know we are definitely talking about the Hawks. I think one of the things that does make me remember him by the win as a number 8 seed in the Western Conference, when he was with Denver, of course.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, with the Nuggets, we got
beating Seattle, and just being on the court, holding the ball, and just really showing his passion and so forth. But as a Hawk, I mean, it's so much of that finger wag. Like there's so many countless times. Can't remember the team that they were playing, but a guy winning, I think it was Alonzo Mourning or something, and Dikembe came down from behind with a chase down block and pretty much went out of bounds with it. And of course, the ball, kind of bounced back, and another guy got it. Dikembe Mutombo jumped up off the floor because he had fell on the play before and ran back in bounds to block the second guy, who just assumed that, okay, Dikembe is out of the play, so I can go ahead and got an easy basket. And he was just that. It was the competitive nature. I'm not sure if it was necessarily really about a particular player, a particular moment, but I think it's just the competitive nature that he came with, especially guys that take pride. Like, just basketball in general, one thing that made me fall in love with the game is how people take, I've always taken pride on the defensive side of the ball. I've always fell in love with defensive players, him being one of the best that I've ever seen do it. But if I had to name one play for sure in that Hawks jersey, I think they were playing the Philadelphia 76ers, and Clarence Weatherspoon went up for a dunk on Dikembe. He blocked the shot and stuffed it right back at Clarence Weatherspoon's face. Weatherspoon tried to put up a second shot. Mutombo blocked it again. Weatherspoon ran it down, turned around to come back and give Dikembe another one. Then he blocked it for a third time. And this is always the famous finger wag that he was known for. And then to make the whole, I think it was perfect. I forgot what commercial it was, but the whole hump day commercial or whatever it was, with having him in there, I thought it was perfect. It was spot on, and he's definitely going to be truly missed.
Yeah, and I think the Hawks were so fortunate to be one of those teams to have him, because he reminds you of the great tradition of centers coming from Georgetown. So for me, I just feel like what John Thompson was able to do in that time with Alonzo Mourning, with Pat Ewing, and with Dikembe Mutombo, you saw all of that all across his career. That stamp was on him. And I feel like every time he played, start to finish for his career, you just saw energy. You just saw never give up. Yeah, it felt like every game he took seriously. Like, I'm if I'm out here, whether it's 48 minutes or whether it's 48 minutes or 4 minutes, you're going to get that same effort. And when we started learning about all of the things that he did off the court, that for me was so powerful, because I mean, you're building hospitals, you're giving back, just such a beautiful soul. And I only passed him one time in State Farm, is Phillips Arena. And I got to tell you, it wasn't a fangirl moment, but it was more like, ooh, that is a tall human.
Yes, it is. How can someone's parent give birth? Not that you give birth to somebody that tall coming right out, but it's almost like, how can someone give birth to somebody who can grow to be that? I mean, it's almost like, it's unbelievable to see somebody like, you're right. Like, it's see somebody just that tall. It's and not only that, but with a voice that deep.
Yeah,
almost like a Cookie Monster kind of voice kind of thing. But to be that sweet at a person, you're thinking giant person, demonstrative, you just think this big, massive, you just think this masculine person. And not that he wasn't, but just to find out that this person is just like the sweetest person. I think that we've heard so many stories over the past few months since his passing, and even before.
I can definitely confirm on that. Now we got to switch gears to the Hawks, because they got another cup game Wednesday when they travel to take on the Cavs, who are a league-leading 17-1. How do the Hawks bounce back from this 3-game skid to get a win?
First, pray. Let's just get that part out of the way first. But I think, again, this is one of those games where it's about the little teeny tiny things. It is about and I say this about only certain teams. It is the getting on the ground after the loose balls. It is the creation of second chance points. You got to be hitting that. I mean, they've got to be hitting from the 3. I don't see them winning this game if they're not hitting from 3. It's just one of those things where it seems like everything has to go right. Now, I will put out a pretty bold prediction, which I know this is going to sound really crazy. I think that they're going to get one of those games. Obviously, they'll play them Wednesday and they'll play them Friday. Which one, I'm not totally sure, but I got a feeling that they're going to get one of those games, Tenitra. I don't know what says you, but I know that it's going to be a tall task and a huge, mountain to climb, if you will. But I think that it's doable. They might be able to catch Cleveland slipping, but not without converting on some of those threes.
Indeed. And I think that in order for the Hawks to get this, they're going to have to get the formula of the only team that has beaten the Cavaliers, the world champion Boston Celtics. Right. So if you can get lightning in the bottle and do what they do, then you absolutely have an opportunity. But also, on any given night, a team can have an off night and you can be on. And if the off night team is the Cleveland Cavaliers, then the Hawks have a chance to upset them. Now, one more thing before we wrap up.
Sure.
I would say the third quarter is so critical for the Hawks to win, because that's where again, that's where the Celtics beat them. They outscored the Cavs 40-28 and kind of never looked back in that one loss that the Cavs had. So make sure that pesky third quarter is not a pesky third quarter for you Wednesday, and that'll give you a shot. Locked On Sports Atlanta is the #1 place to hang out after every game. Remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And for more Hawks, check out Locked On Hawks with our guy, Brad Rowland. We'll see you next time.